This topic is geared towards dealing with staff, recruiting, managing a team, and also, most importantly, just managing and dealing with human resources related issues. Our presenter today is the wonderful Paula Humber, who is the president and senior HR consultant of P&L Corporate Solutions, LLC, and PL Staffing. Wow, I said a lot, right? This is a company that is located in West Palm Beach, and Paula is like I said, the president of the company. Now, Paula earned her MBA from Nova Southeastern University, which is also where I earned my MBA. And I just learned that, and I actually didn't know. So, hey, go Sharks. And she's also she's certified to practice human resources at a senior level by SHRM. And SHRM it stands for the Society of Human Resource Management. And this is a huge deal in the HR world. If I remember during my corporate life, when someone is a senior SHRM person, they know their stuff. So we're in for a treat. Paula also is a devoted wife and a mother of four, and is honored, of course, to serve entrepreneurs and also organizations with the resources to help them to succeed. So from that little that I've shared, that you are in for some knowledge today, a lot of tips, and just really a lot of Paula and her expertise. So please join me in welcoming Paula Humber. Please do take it from here. And Paula, I'm gonna just go ahead and make sure that we can um, see you and that you're.
Hi, everyone. So I'm working on my slide here. There we go. How's everyone today? Sidoni, thank you for that introduction. That was quite elaborate, and I feel so honored to be here. Thanks for having me be a part of your How to Run Your Business from Home. This session, as Sidoni mentioned, is about managing your team, recruiting staff, and basically working with limited resources during COVID. But before I get started, I want to give myself an introduction and just introduce myself to you all. My name is Paula Humber, and I'm president of PL Staffing, which is the division of P&L Corporate Solutions. And our wheelhouse is human resources. In fact, we call ourselves the HR Pro on the go. We've got a blog and everything, so check us out. But what we do is help not only small to mid-sized businesses, but large corporations as well, in 4 areas of managing their employees. Not just employee relations, the back and forth on how to handle employees every day, but we also help with training and development, HR compliance like handbooks and understanding the legislation and regulations that impact your business, both on a local and a national level, but also talent acquisitions, which is also called recruiting and staffing. So we do a lot of staffing for some of our government partners as a woman-owned minority business as well. So if you need a partner in utilization goals, we're here for you in that aspect as well. But back to today's topic, talking about how to run your business from a human resources standpoint. So first, I'd like to just let you know that there is a brighter side to all of this. Sometimes when you think of COVID, you've really got to count your blessings because it's like so much bad is going on. But you know what? There is a brighter side to working from home as opposed to in an office. Not only are you saving money, but you get to keep and retain employees who you might otherwise have needed to let go because you're able to accommodate them now. This will result in increased morale, which results in happier employees. And then another good way to look at it on a recruiting standpoint, you get to select the best person possible because technology has now eliminated distance being an issue. So you really have the sky is the limit. But I want to put one disclaimer in on remote work. Essentially, Some jobs require on-site work. And so there are three testers that I generally use when I'm talking and consulting with people about whether and how to do remote work. First and foremost, does the job, take out the job description, take out and look at the job specifications, and just make sure that the job does not significantly impact or involve in-person interactions with the public or others in the organization. Otherwise, remote work can become a little bit, a big bit of a challenge. Secondly, if the job demands hands-on use of materials or equipment, you may have to make some on-site concessions. And last but not least, if the job necessitates the use of the employee's physical ability and skills. So again, take a look at the brighter side. Anything is possible, but first and foremost, take a look at your position. I want you to take a look at the brighter side from the standpoint of an organization, but also from the employee standpoint. I know some people who are absolutely loving this remote work. Not having to drive in traffic has been a wonderful aspect for people. Having the flexibility and independence to be able to, be at home in your comfortable environment with your pets and your children, and just being able to fry an egg and then go in front of the computer and, hey, I'm at work. Last but not least, there's a level of focus at home that you really can't duplicate in an office. Quite simply, many people work better in that environment. And so one trend that we've received and seen as a positive result is a decline in employee relations issues. So those are your common miscommunications, or even things as egregious as discrimination and things like that, just because that element of interaction, in-person interaction, isn't there. So look at the brighter side. There's good to all of this. But what we're here to deal with today are the challenges. As I mentioned within the title of this this presentation, there's three areas that we're going to focus on. Essentially, they're going to be managing our employees and what are the challenges that we're going to find in association with that. Hiring remote employees, because it's a different animal. It's not the same as, someone who would be in the office with you, for example. And then last but not least, dealing with limited resources, not just resources in tangible goods, but in people, limited people in your workforce. So let's start with the first one. Very practical. So I'm going to give you some keys, and I look forward to hearing from you at the end with any questions that you may have. But these are really the reoccurring issues that I'm facing or seeing with my different clients who have had to transition to remote work. So first and foremost, in creating a plan for remote work, you got to create a plan. You got to have a plan. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of challenges. But first and foremost, you need to make sure that your employees, as well as your clients, have the necessary equipment, whether or not that be internet, computers, phones, access to those things in order to be successful as a remote team. Creating a plan is not just about those tangible things. I mean, there's a technical side to it and there's an interpersonal side to it. So the technical side are those tangible things that I just named. However, we also need a communication plan, because not everyone communicates the same. Let's face it, some people are better via Zoom and they really can connect with people, while others are great on chat all day long. We can chat in Teams, others like to text. And then there are some people, and sometimes this can be generational. So take a look at the different generations that you have represented in your workforce. So other people just like to pick up the phone. Like, I can't be bothered with the logins, with the passwords. Let's just pick up the phone and have a conversation. I can't deal with it. You have to know what you're working with, and you have to be flexible enough to accommodate those people as much as possible. Working from home also requires you to kind of tailor your communication styles. So you may be a short and abrupt person, and maybe you may talk more in terms of yes and no, and you like, short bullets. Remote work is going to pull a little bit out of you and require that you ask specific, open-ended questions and have a dialogue so that clarification it's clear as far as what you're relaying is what the person is receiving and vice versa. So ask those questions and make sure you're communicating effectively. Hold regular meetings and regular communication points so that you're often communicating with your employee on a weekly basis, even on a daily basis. If you have a morning huddle, and just to say, okay, we're working on this today. Who needs help with this? What can I do here? What did you accomplish, etc. We're human beings, and so you know what, we're going to want to interact. So creating opportunities for face-to-face contact is one that's important, but maybe not very, very often for those people who don't prefer it. Convening in person as my last bullet there, but I just say so safely, and of course following CDC guidelines as much as possible, because there is always going to be an element where people need to connect on a personal basis. Utilize the technology we have to be casual, if you will. On Zoom, I've seen people do happy hours and water cooler talks, to duplicate what it is they were doing in the office. So set those clear objectives and clear goals and communicate them often. But I think I said that word communicate like 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Yes, communicate for sure. That's a key to managing a remote team. One thing that you can't avoid though is burnout. This is one of the top issues that we're seeing with remote work. And essentially, people have access to their computer and thereby work, and so they're not turning it off. So encouraging your employees to have consistent hours. Okay, we're going to work from 9 to 5. It depends on your industry, it depends on your job, but as much as possible, at 5, cut it off. Encourage those breaks. One other declining thing that we're seeing is people taking their sick time and taking their vacation. Sometimes you've got to get creative with this. You may want to review some of your policies to say, okay, well, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So to really encourage people to take the breaks that they need that are necessary. And even though they're not feeling well, to log in. No, go lay down, take a day off, encourage those things. Another way to avoid breakout is to make sure that your goals are achievable, so people don't feel as though they're on a hamster wheel, constantly going after a goal that they're just never going to achieve. That will definitely cause some frustration in this time. There are plenty of opportunities for development in this time. Online and with various vendors, there are a lot of opportunities to hone in on people's soft skills and provide training that's not technical and on the job, but that will help them do their job and to develop them both personally and professionally. Maybe this would be a great time for someone to go through certification training if they needed to get a certificate for their job. Awesome opportunity. And this is also a time where achievements or things that people are doing good often go under the radar. So look for those things and call them out and make people know that you're aware of, you see exactly what they're doing, and congratulate them, thank them. It goes a long way, it really does. If your job says they can, rotate the job. Especially if you have a lateral work site and you have different jobs that are on the same team, for example, allow people to rotate so they can see what someone else does and see how their role impacts the whole. And of course, encourage those face-to-face interactions safely. I'm putting out that disclaimer, following CDC guidelines. Let's move on to the next step of hiring in this whole remote world. Now, the first paragraph here talks about some adjectives and things that you want to look at when you're interviewing someone. And the things they need to be, like self-motivated and comfortable with technology. So you want to look for those things in an interview. However, what I want to talk about is that second paragraph. They possess integrity, good planning, organizational skills, a willingness to help. You're probably asking yourself, well, how do I tell that from an interview? Or how would I be able to tell if this person had that? One key that I've always used, and one that I teach a lot of my managers, is behavioral interviewing as a skill to perfect before interviewing or while you're interviewing. Behavioral interviewing, the science behind it essentially is what people did in the past, they're going to do in the future. So your questions, if you're trying to figure out, for example, whether or not someone has the willingness to work unusual hours, your question may sound something like this. Tell me about a time where you had to work outside of your regular work hours. And if they give you a short answer, then probe, ask some more questions, and get as many, milk it as much as possible, just to make sure that you're getting an accurate question. Then you may accurate response, pardon me, and then you may want to ask it in a different way, but you're always asking them for very specific times when they had to do this or that. So they have to employ their storytelling abilities. Same thing with their willingness to ask for help. Well, hey, tell me about a time where your job maybe reached outside of what you were able to do and you had to ask for help. Wait for that response and see how they respond. And you'll be very surprised as to what you can get from people when you stay on that topic and you continue to probe and probe and probe. The last point here, the last bullets are, the right teamwork time, the right team member to work on a remote team has the following attributes. They work independently, good work-life balance. Oftentimes you're unable to really see that this person is able to do this until 30, 60, 90 days down the line. So one thing that I do encourage is for you to absolutely create goals and expectations at that 30, 60, 90 threshold and review those with them. And so if you're seeing that they're having trouble meeting deadlines and priorities by day 30, then make that clear and make that known and provide them with resources as to how they can do it better. The problem that we're facing right now with COVID is, with unemployment, we see an influx of candidates and really not enough jobs. So the problem you'll most likely face is a lot of candidates, depending on what industry you're in. Like if you're in education, you won't have this problem. But in other industries, we're finding that there are a lot of applicants and just not enough jobs. So it's going to be really important for you to be very discerning and to take your time at the interview phase and to really maybe get a second opinion as far as a candidate goes. If you're not quite sure and you don't want to employ any biases on anyone, have someone else meet with the person and see if they're a good fit. Always a good thing to do. Last but not least, we're going to talk about working with limited resources, like a limited team or, limited tangible resources like finances. This is a real reality today. So first and foremost, you're going to need to sharpen your project management skills here because you may find yourself and your employees may find themselves with a lot of different tasks and just not enough hours in the day. So my first bit of advice to you is to decide what needs your attention early, urgently, and act accordingly. Distribute work accordingly. And my third bullet here is really key. Review your job descriptions, and you may want to redistribute tasks to see, okay, well, what is everyone doing? And let's see if we can utilize this person's skill set in this area since we're unable to hire this person at this time. Utilizing a technology I can't understate that. I can't say it more. There are project management softwares out there. There are outsourced professionals, like outsource human resources and outsource accounting and there's outsourced people who can help you make it through this time. So you don't have to hire someone, but you can have someone to maybe come in and do project work little by little so that you can make it through and not have to have that extra FTE on your budget. But back to some of the technologies that are out there as far as project management software, I don't have one in particular that I want to subscribe to or give an advertisement for today, but I will say that there are plenty out there that can help you not only organize your projects, but not your clients. They can act as a communication sounding board amongst your team to help you with that communication, keep you organized, and there's a lot of interfacing with your current technologies. So I would definitely encourage you to look at the different technologies and avail yourself to some of those. And those that, of course, help you to increase communication, because communication is going to be key in succeeding. So in summary today, I just wanted to go through some of the best practices that I talked about in reference to working from home. As I mentioned before, make sure that the job itself is suitable and that you have the right tools, that you've communicated and prepared not only your employees, but your clients thoroughly so they know what to expect. They know how to communicate best with you, clarify any expectations, any goals. And while we're still separate, you may have issues, but if we're handling those issues immediately, early, then we prevent them from escalating into something they don't need to. As far as managing someone one-on-one, provide ongoing support, get ongoing feedback, ask about their family in this time. We've got to know that there is a person behind our worker, that they have a family, that they have things going on that may seriously impact their ability to be at your workplace every day. So it's important to have some type of a rapport and gain that trust and establish it and maintain it. What it's going to take in this time to succeed is the right people, the right employees, the right managers, ongoing communication, and utilizing the right tools. And these are the strategies that we talked about today in dealing with common challenges. If you ever are in need of help in managing your employees, or if you're in need of employees, period, we are a staffing agency. So I want to avail myself to my communication, my contact information, and tell you to shout us out at HR Pro on the Go blog. We have a couple of interesting topics that we've been exploring and would love to hear your feedback there. And I'm going to turn it back over to Sidoni. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions. Sidoni?
Yes, thank you so much for that. Very thorough, very thorough. I really do appreciate that. Your expertise comes through 100% in your presentation, and I know who to look to when I decide to increase my team. A lot of things were said today. We do have some questions, first of all, but I also wanted to know if there's any insight on just dealing with contractors as well. So that's, a little bit down the road, but I'll ask the questions first. I want to come back to that and just think about that. Just the process of, you don't have control over contractors, right? Because they are their own company, so to speak, or sometimes they're just 1099s. But sometimes we have to deal with this, extra resources. And how, it's a question of how do you manage that? So if you want, you could answer that right now, and I could go to—
Absolutely, I would love to. So the difference between a 1099 or a contractor, as Sidoni mentioned, and an employee, a W-2 person, is really your level of independence that you allow this person. However, generally at the beginning of a contracting relationship. There is a proposal and there is a time for that person to tell exactly the work that they're going to do. Or on the other hand, you may stipulate exactly what you need them to do. That's the time where you set out your goals and your expectations. And just like you would with an employee, they still have the expectation to perform at a certain level and at certain timelines. So you hold them to that accordingly. It actually makes your job easier. An employee, you really need to think twice before you fire an employee. But a contractor, it's easy to terminate the relationship and move on to the next. Of course, everyone is a person, and you don't want to burn bridges in business and life, period. But you manage that effectively. And if those goals and expectations are not being met, then you can effectively talk to them, and hey, I need you to improve this. This needs to be approved the same way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Always look for any kind of advice on that type of stuff because it's very delicate, right? You can't tell them
Yes, it
exactly
is.
what to do, but you want them to do the job that you're hiring them to do somewhat.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
One of the questions that came up, it's how do I make sure that people are productive when I do not see them every day?
Mm-hmm. And that's going to be communication, communication, communication. So that's where you definitely need to implement some type of regular communication so that people don't feel as though you are micromanaging. There's a thin line there, but you're showing your best interest. Like, I want to know what's happening with you so that I can help you do your job better, as opposed to what are you doing now? Oh, and what are you doing now? And did you do this correctly? And did there's a way to go about it. But if it's a regular part of your routine where in the morning we get up and we do our huddles and we huddle and we go around the circle and we say what everyone's doing, then it just becomes a regular routine. And then you also create a level of accountability, not only between yourself and your employee, but amongst the team. You're creating a team.
Wow, thank you so much. I have another one here. It's asking, how do I coordinate meetings when people have different schedules?
Mm. And that's another reason for having the reoccurring meeting. So you have a challenge because people are at home. They are probably juggling kids at school, at home, their other responsibilities at home, their own personal things that they need to do, etc. But you having core work hours and having a consistent time to say, okay, we always meet at this time, and not varying from it too much will help you to coordinate not only with people here, but as I mentioned, with technology, distance doesn't become an issue. So you may have someone on the West Coast of the United States who's in a different time zone. Keep those times consistent and turn those into opportunities for communication in generating meetings. I would double up meetings as far as if I have a weekly staff meeting at 10 a.m. on Fridays and we had an issue, I would also deal with that issue during that time so that we're not having to recreate a whole nother time and look at other people's schedules, etc.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. I think another thing that might help as well are those softwares and tools that you were
Yes,
talking about, right?
absolutely.
Calendly is pretty well known.
Okay.
I use it. It's a tool that integrates with Google as well. So it syncs up with your
Mhm.
Google Calendar if you have a Google account or anything
There you
else.
go.
So that's pretty helpful because you could really see when the person is available. And there's some
Mhm.
internal tools that are out there as well to manage the calendars. But I
That's right.
really do like your idea of kind of standardizing that meeting so they understand that, at least within this time frame, this
Mhm.
hour, ever so often, I'm having this meeting. So their mind really just goes to that so that they could better prepare, right?
Sure. And there's very little that we can control in this time. Let's face it, everything is kind of up in the air, right? So
Yeah.
creating ways, little things that we can within our control, make consistent and steady and stable, so people have that level of comfort. Is anything you can do at that time, at this time, is great.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I have another question. How long of a trial period should you give a person to learn the job?
It really does depend on the job, but as I mentioned, depending on how complex it is, I always give 30, 60, and 90-day goals and expectations. Now, by 30 days, you say this person should understand our policies and procedures. I'm talking HR now. So they should understand our policies and procedures. They should be familiar with our technology and how we do things. And they should have a good understanding of how our communication works. Because 30 days, you're really trying to get acclimated. But then by 60 days, maybe you start bringing in some of those things from the job description that are more job specific. Technically, like in most businesses, they have a probationary period, they like to call it. And during that time, what an employer is doing is taking a look at what you put in your resume, what you put in that application, and seeing, hey, does this person really know how to do this? Is what was on the paper what I have before me? And so that's exactly what you do. So there's no magic number I can give you as to how long you give the person. But if you hired someone who on their resume said that shows that they are way overqualified, they have years and years and years of experience, and by 30 days, they can't get the most basic of things done, you may want to trust that something more is going on there. And either you need to decide, as a small business, it's hard because either you need to decide if you want to invest more time and money and effort into this person, or if you need to make a decision at that point.
Yeah, which typically you don't have, right? The time or the
Right.
money. So you really have.
Unfortunately, and as good-hearted as you are, it's just hard. It's
Mhm.
hard because you sometimes you just can't afford to be doing it, because if they're not doing it, 9 times out of 10 you are. And how many fingers and hands and toes do you have to be able to do everything?
Right. Now, you mentioned policies and procedures, which that's pretty interesting to me because
Yeah.
I think that helps an employee to, if they really go through it, that really helps them to understand, what the processes are,
Mhm.
um, what they need to be doing from a policy standpoint. So from your standpoint, what should the policy and procedure, what are the basics? You don't have to go through the whole thing, but what should
No.
this have? And is this something that you provide?
Yes, so absolutely. This is generally where I enter in a relationship with a small business at the point where they've grown to the point that they have an employee or two or three. And, generally when you're in a small business, you have that family atmosphere. And so there comes a time where you want to formalize things. You want to be a little bit more legit, for lack of better terms.
Mhm.
And so you want to be able to put rules and procedures in place and say, this is the way that I want this to look. This is how we should do this. And sometimes those people that became so close of friends and family turn around and laugh like, oh, that's just Paula. She's just playing. I see her in the weekend. Oh, whatever. And you need someone to come in and intercept and say, oh no, we're in business. And the turning point for a lot of business owners is when they realize what's at stake here. So you've been in business now for 2, 3, 4 years, and the blood, sweat, and tears you put into those 2, 3, 4 years. And you realize that this guy that likes cute girls and makes comments, his one little comment could completely wipe out your whole business. I don't know if most people realize this, but an EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Council, claim from a previous employer, for example, they are very prevalent, number one. But number two, the settlements from those can wipe out and be more than what most business owners make in a year. And so the stakes are very high. Unfortunately, some people don't think about human resources and the law and what laws really impact your employees until it's too late. So I'm here to come side by side with you before things like that occur, to maybe provide help with a handbook or just a set of policies. Handbooks are not required, but they're just neat and concise and really helpful. But policies that people need to understand, number one, how to approach the employment relationship, in answer to your question. Number two, how to interact at work so we don't discriminate, we don't harass, this is the way we act. Also, you would just need, as a small business, just parameters around just what we do with clients as well. So there are some key policies that can be put in place for those things in particular, and then follow-up training, which you can follow up and actually teach people, okay, well, look, because we're in business and we are a government contractor, for example, we are subject to this law. Or because we're in Florida, in the state of Florida, in the county of Palm Beach, we have this specific legislation that we need to be cognizant of. And because of that, you can't do such and such.
Okay, wonderful. Do you have any advice in regards to dealing with employees with disabilities?
Absolutely. So let's start from the hiring point of view, and then we'll go to someone who is actually currently employed with you. So from the hiring point of view, when you're in the interview phase with someone and they have an apparent disability, my advice to you is not to say anything at all about what you apparently see, because according to the law, someone with a disability is not required to tell you anything about it. Focus on the job at hand. Look at that job description and make sure the questions that you're asking them are based upon their ability to complete these tasks. At the end of the day, you may not hire this person, but a lot of discrimination takes place in that interview phase, believe it or not. And people have won claims based upon, I didn't get the job because this person, commented on my wheelchair. And so they didn't give me the job because of my wheelchair. So you be cognizant of what you're doing and what you're asking. But then also, when someone is already an employee, your questions now again go back to the job description. That piece of information is really important. And also another thing that service that I provide, putting together job descriptions. But that piece of information, that document, is really, really important. So you would go back to that job description and take a look with the help of a professional, their doctor, their medical professional, and say, what parts of this job can be done with what type of accommodations? What accommodations can I make with them? As a small business, sometimes you don't have the bandwidth to be able to provide them the accommodations necessary to have them work in that position. And that's something that you're going to have to decide with the help, again, of a medical professional, as well as taking a look at the job description and talking to the person and saying, okay, well, in this job, you need to be able to stand for at least 5 hours a day because you're standing at this cash register. These are our hours. So if you're totally unable to stand, and I'm just throwing that out as an example, then unfortunately, you may not be able to do this job, things like that.
Mhm.
Or you can say, on the other hand, hey, I'm able to put this cash register down here on this table so that this person can wheel up and sit and do this job. That's not going to cost me too much. I don't have to, there's an element of cost to it. But the Americans with Disability Act gives us some very clear guidelines as to how to handle accommodations for employees with disabilities.
Mhm. As you're speaking, I'm also thinking about just the times that we're in. COVID-19, dealing with employees with disabilities or any other needs. I was working with a small business that had to invest in something like 10 laptops so that
Mhm.
the people that would normally come into the office, that they can work from home.
That's right.
He was hurting because he was looking for a loan to be able to do it. There's so much that you take on as a small business that really a lot sometimes people don't realize. And then even yourself may not anticipate, because
Right.
who knew that this was going to happen, and you would have to get 10 laptops in order to. And not only that, he had to make sure that he had now firewall, that
Exactly.
everyone would be able to log into their systems,
Mhm.
and provide training, which
Mhm.
cost. So you really can't anticipate these things, but you just have to somewhat be prepared for it.
Exactly.
Um,
You have
yeah.
to get creative, Sidoni. Like in situations like that, you know, there may be an employee who has a laptop at home already. And
Mhm.
so instead of purchasing a brand new laptop, you may give them a stipend for internet or
Mm,
something like that, and come up with some type of an agreement as to them using that piece of equipment for work until you can do better. There's a
mm,
lot that can be done, but one thing that's for sure in this time, it takes creativity and thinking outside of the box, because otherwise, if you take things from face value and just say, man, if I don't get this, then I'm done, I'm through, I'm over, you might just be, but there are other ways to do things. There are other ways to do things. You know, if for example, in that situation, here's another solution that a client of mine did. Well, the laptops were for home use, right? So while the laptops are in use at home, there's still office space that he had to pay for. So rather than saying all together, everyone, oh, you got to work from home, COVID's a terrible thing. No, he had 5 people come in and
mhm,
5 people stay at home, and then they switch and they rotate.
mhm,
And the ones who are 5 in the office now can safely distance themselves,
mhm,
and they can do their job without being on top of one another. And they also have the opportunity on the odd weeks to be at home. So that's, instead of 10 laptops, that would have been 5. So you
mhm.
got to kind of think and be resourceful as well.
Right. And that's why it's so important to be able to reach out to an expert, to talk to someone that may know someone that has been in the situation, may
Sure.
have, because what you just mentioned, that would have been a good solution. That could have
Mhm.
been. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about employers that would reimburse their employees for their cell phones because they already
There you
had a
go.
cell phone. So now they give them a
Right.
stipend towards a cell phone.
So
It's
we
somewhat
just need,
similar.
yeah, just, I mean, you may have some software there that you may want to make sure the person can accommodate with, you know, do you have this level of a cell phone, things like that. But yeah, you definitely need to work with someone who has more of an IT background, but that was just an example.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. I have one last question,
Okay.
and basically it's asking how to recruit someone that's displaced
Okay.
um, during COVID-19. So I think the question is really asking about if you're recruiting someone that has been displaced.
Right,
COVID-19.
exactly. That's typically, and there's a lot of people like that. One resource that I use myself for my staffing component, I provide staffing for the school district of Palm Beach County, as
Mhm,
well as as I'm a subcontractor for some of its vendors as well. And one resource that has been really, really integral for me has been Career Source Palm Beach County. Career
mhm,
Source has a branch in every county. So there's Career Source Broward, there's Career Source in Miami as well. But that's typically where people go to help them with unemployment and things like that. So you definitely find a lot of those people who have been displaced through
mhm,
those connections. Another place is through, if your workforce is unionized, or you have a position where there are a lot of people who are in unions, go to those unions and ask them, do they have any employees who need a job? Oftentimes they have a list of people that they're wanting to help, especially if it's like there. I know there's a union for electricians, for example. There's unions for everything. You kind of have to just do a little bit of digging, but
mhm.
it's definitely something that you can you can find out there. But Career Source is a free resource. Free is for me. Free is for every entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So not only can you post your positions there, but they even help you with your recruiting and sometimes with training even. There's a budget there for helping small businesses train their employees. So I would definitely look into that.
Wonderful. Such great, great tips. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I
you're
could talk to
welcome.
you for another hour about these topics because we all go through this.
Yeah,
Sometimes we think about human resources. We don't need HR until, like you
you need
said,
HR.
until you need HR,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I know we're wrapping up right now, but I'm just out of curiosity. If you were to say, how do you set up yourself as a small business for success when you're dealing with or you're getting ready to grow? You probably have one employee or you're
Mhm,
thinking about hiring and to really get to the next level. What kind of structure do you need to have in place so that when you hire these employees, there was a question that asked, how long do you give someone before
mhm,
you really give up on them, so to speak? How much training do they need? I think a lot of that has to do with you as well. What kind
mhm.
of preparation are you making in order to really get an employee in? Go ahead.
Well, there's certain there's certain reasons and certain ways that you need an employee, and a lot of it has to do with your time management. If you are completely expended, you also have to have the money to do it because the employees are expensive. But if you are completely expended and you are totally unable to do anything else, I would say um, arguably one of the most important things in business is business development. And if you're unable to do that to get new business and you're
Mhm.
constantly just working on business, you're going to find yourself in a problem at some point in time. So you might want to start looking at that point. But when you're thinking about putting the structure together, um, I would there's technology out there, of course, but I would focus number one on just obtaining all of the maybe the application process and the files that you might need from them. You might not know what goes into them,
Mhm.
but it's a process almost. You might start with going on the internet and finding something very basic, but then you learn, in my line of business I really need this, so then you tweak it and say, okay, well, let's pivot and let's do this differently. You're going to need help to know what's required, but I would say bringing on an employee is just like when you started your business in the first place, because many of us, we didn't know, okay, well, you got to go to Sunbiz and you've got to do this and you've got, somebody told us that, told us those things. Or we
I
figured it out. Yeah. Or
so
we figured it out because say you went for a certification and they said, oh no, we need your articles of incorporations. And you were like, who? And then you went and figured it out, right?
yeah.
So the same thing with an employee. You need to realize if you're calling this person an employee and they're not a contractor, so you have to take out the appropriate taxes out of their paycheck. And not only that, but you need to go to the Florida Department of Revenue here in Florida and sign up so that they know what taxes you've taken out. And there's a lot that goes into it. So in answer to your question, just call me.
That sounds
There's
like a good
no,
option.
yeah, honestly, because there's a lot of it that can go under the cracks if you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but it really does take a mind to know. Don't be afraid to reach out. There are a lot of free resources, the MBDA and all of these workshops and webinars. They're here to avail you of all of these resources and partnerships that they've already created. So I would encourage you to, tie into someone like Sidoni and ask her, well, do you have a resource? You'd be surprised what free resources are out there. um,
Right.
just ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't one thing from one business owner to the next. The one thing that I learned early and that I continually learn: never look at someone else as a competitor.
Yeah.
I don't know how many women are on the line today, but even as women, sometimes we have a tendency to look at other women and be like, she looks that way, or we get a little catty sometimes.
Right.
And I was afraid of this starting my business, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to deal with these women. I can't take it. But you know what I found instead? I found a real bond with people who do exactly what I do. I found someone who is much older than me in age, who took me under her wing
Mm.
very early on and answered all of my questions. And I mean, we were sitting there and I'm trying to be polite here. And she's just like, well, you didn't even ask me how much I charge people. Ask me. Men talk about this thing all the time. I was like, oh. And you know what?
Wow.
I took that model and I do it today. If there's anybody that I can help out, connect with someone, answer a question, help them know something that I happen to know that doesn't take me too far off course,
Yeah.
I'm all about it. And I encourage you to be so too, because that's the way that we all come out up. We better ourselves, people pull us up, so we pull others up with us.
Hmm. Wow, this is wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed this session.
Thank you.
And for sure, I will be talking to you even after this, for sure. Well, thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for your time. Thank you for your contribution today. We learned a lot. I'm pretty sure that I'll get the feedback. I usually do. And this was great. I can feel it. So I know that that's coming. Um,
Awesome.
just to talk about the next session that's coming up, we did mention it, but I want to go ahead and mention this again. This slide, actually, I'm sharing this right here in the back, the bottom corner here is access to capital. We have the South Florida Regional Planning Council that will be joining us next time, and they'll be talking about money. How do you get a loan? This is something that we absolutely need as small businesses. It's the most asked question that I get every single time. How do I get capital? Whether it's in the form of a loan, whether it's in the form of grants, whatever it is, it's needed. So we are bringing that to you, and we hope that you will join us. And that will be on November 5th. So Thursday, same time, noon to 1 o'clock, a little bit after if the program is really good. Um, and then we'll see you that. So that's it for now. You know how to reach me. My name is Sidonie Naismith, company's Black Swan Events. We are in Broward County. We cover the Broward County area. Also East Miami under the CARES Act as business consultants, but we also cover the world on a lot of other things. So until then, be safe. Thank you for your time and see you soon. Thanks, Paula.